Hey everybody, welcome back to the Sideline Crowd podcast. I am your host, Skylar Timmons. We're running a two-man crew today as I am joined by my cohort, Quentin Denny.
How's it going?
It's going. How are you doing?
It's good. It's good.
Both got our Owls hats. Doing good.
We've had a week of minor league baseball being canceled, so...
Oh, yeah.
Sad times. But have you seen a lot of those teams? I guess we can start off on our tangents already. Just jump right into tangents.
Jump right into it.
The Texas League, which is like Corpus Christi, Amarillo, Sod Poodles, they turned their whole situation into a collegiate league. So they let their facilities, it's like the Sod Daddies or something like that. Sod Pods.
Somehow that's worse.
The Sod Daddies. But they turned it into collegiate woodbat leagues, so that's cool. And you can watch those too on their wherever they broadcast. MILB TV? I have no idea.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty interesting. That's something like a lot of those minor league teams would go about doing is, they try to figure out how to salvage. So there's a lot of them doing their just still promotions, gathering people on the fields, opening up the stadiums where they can.
Airbnb.
Yeah. That would be pretty sweet, though, to be able to muster the money to go do one of those Airbnbs.
Just sleep in the clubhouse.
I was contemplating doing that for free this season anyway.
Yeah, that would have been, you would have had to do that.
That would have been my...
As a clubhouse manager, you would never leave that.
Yeah, and then traveling on the road to broadcast, too.
You'd be sleeping on the floor.
Yeah, I'd just sleep in that nasty clubhouse manager office.
The bus.
But yeah, so sadly, that's probably one of the biggest news. Minor League Baseball, kind of the writing on the wall. It's not a big surprise that they finally canceled it.
Yeah.
I think
it was inevitable. No one thought that it was reasonable to bring minor league baseball back, other than maybe the owners of those teams who were begging and hoping as possible.
Yeah,
but yeah, that happened. That happened like right after we got done recording last episode.
Yeah, there's been a lot that's happened this past week.
Yeah, baseball's back.
Yes, baseball's back. Summer
As we're recording this right now, we have the Yankees playing the Yankees, so that's on Yes Network, and you can watch that. And they'll probably be streaming more of these inter-squad games to get at least some viewership, I know. So that's cool, and hopefully we'll see more stuff like this.
Yeah.
As the boys are at summer camp.
Yeah. I was going to make a joke in one of my quick hits videos of just doing little news recaps that some of the other activities at summer camp included crafting and canoeing and
the boys
archery.
In cabin 5, please get your itch cream for your poison ivy.
They should be learning sewing so they make new jerseys, quarantine jerseys.
Knitting, a knitted jersey. It's just yarn in the back, trout.
It's just bedazzled trout on the back.
Oh.
That would be awful.
That'd be so bad to play in. You slide head first and it just rips.
The threading comes undone as you're running to first base.
The catcher steps on it and it just cartoon style just unwinds.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
This is what happens when it's just you and I doing these podcasts where we
just a baseball podcast. What are we talking about?
Who knows?
I'm distracted with summer camp. Yeah, it's like the coolest sounding summer camp, the one I always wish I could have done, baseball summer camp. That also sounds like it's prison almost, in the sense that like the rules are terrible. There's like their safety's in jeopardy.
Yeah, and that's kind of like one of the biggest things. We can just hop to this right away. With summer camp underway, everybody's kind of in their couple of days. We've had both World Series teams from last year didn't have camp today. They canceled their workouts because they hadn't gotten their coronavirus tests back yet.
Mm-hmm. There's like a delay. San Francisco was another one of the teams that had an issue like that. Theirs going from only San Francisco to Utah, which is where they have their testing facility. Houston. And then the test that did come back for the first preliminary testing showed it was 31 players in total.
Yeah.
So if you think about that, there was like 4,000 people tested, 3,000 something, 1.2% positive rate, which really isn't terrible. And it's kind of actually a good sign for baseball. And it was one player on at least 19 teams. So yeah, the testing's going on. There is an issue with this, and if this continues to be an issue, the season could be in jeopardy. And there's many teams. Mike Rizzo, the GM for the Nationals, he came out and made a statement saying it's unsafe. Sean Doolittle, who's very vocal about issues going on in the league, made a statement about that, how the face masks, gloves, they had a delayed shipment for the Nationals, how he's going out there. His wife has a lung issue. So him playing is really a threat that could be to his wife and could really harm her if he does contract it and then does give it to her. So you think about these players who have families. I mean, Ian Desmond was the first, I think. I mean, the Nationals, we had Joe Ross and Ryan Zimmerman who opted out for their reasons. Ian Desmond came out, made a huge statement saying he's going to focus on the Little League at home and building his family, which is a young family.
Yeah.
And so these testings, if they're not coming back and players do get positive tests or they do have a summer camp where they're waiting in between test periods, who knows what could happen.
Yeah, and I think it's the big thing with the summer camp that's underway is it seems like every day so far since they started the testing, and you just keep getting reports again and again of, oh, this player tests positive, this player is tested positive type thing. I think from what I've seen lately, like Freddie Freeman has actually been hit the hardest from anybody that's kind of been vocal about it. Because guys like DJ LeMahieu, Salvador Perez, they're kind of asymptomatic. But Freddie Freeman's got like a high fever. He's been kind of in rough shape at the moment. Kind of what Nick Markakis was saying, who opted out today as well. So it's kind of scary, and like you were saying, puts that season in jeopardy of how long, at what point will it take to them to say, all right, we're done. We're just going to cancel the season. We fought for nothing over money all season.
Just did terrible issues came up in our negotiations that will be going on to the next CBA. So let's see what happens. I'm hopeful that we will get the testing all figured out. There's bound to be some kind of issues with having to do cross-country testing and stuff where you sample in one and then send it to Utah, which the closest team to Utah is Denver. And then after that, it's just not like super close hour flights. And so, I mean, they'll probably figure that out as they get the influx of tons of tests a couple times a week. And they'll just continue to play summer camp baseball, I guess.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of getting to that point where, you know, it's even more serious. They need to do everything they can to make sure the players are being safe. Because, you know, especially when you got guys like Mike Trout that are contemplating, like, I might not play this season because of these health concerns, my pregnant wife, and everything. So, and the West, they have a lot more traveling to do than the other two divisions.
Everything's a further flight, which adds more time, more stress, and more margin for error.
So it's a scary thing.
Scary thing that it's going on right now. David Price, he, in one of the weirder situations, the Dodgers traded for David Price in the offseason. Traded, Jeter Downs and Alex Verdugo for David Price and Mookie Betts. They also included another one, but those were the two main prospects that they got. And David Price and Mookie Betts, I believe, were on one-year deals. Or David Price had like 2 or 3?
David Price has like 3 years, yeah.
Yeah, but his is a ridiculous amount of money he's getting paid. So the fact that we were talking about this earlier, if someone like Mookie Betts did opt out, the fact that they traded for Mookie Betts just doesn't count. Like, he's now a free agent.
Complete poetic justice.
It would just be something so dumb like that, where the Dodgers, they give up a real good prospect in Alex Verdugo, who's showed himself to be a starting player, and Jeter Downs, who's a young up-and-coming prospect. And you get Mookie Betts, and instead of having him for 162 games like you thought, you get him for 60, and then if he opts out, you don't get him at all, and you lose that anyways.
Yeah. So that would personally for me, I would love him for him to sit out.
Yeah, I bet as a Rockies fan.
I would love for him to sit out. Just poetic justice.
No, he needs to sit out. He needs to take care of his health. Come on.
Yeah.
Hasn't he figured this out yet? Ian Desmond left. Wait, what?
Yeah. We can talk about that in a second. Because Ian Desmond, that one, I really like what he's doing. For a myriad of reasons. But seeing these players, these bigger name players opting out, it's kind of opening up the door for maybe some of these other free agents or younger guys in systems for these other teams, giving them a shot to prove themselves here in a 60-game window. Because you got Matt Kemp, of all people, in this bizarro 2020, who's a Colorado Rocky now.
Yeah, best numbers at Coors Field.
It's crazy. And so to see some of these guys that are opting out, what windows will that open for other players? And what will they do with those windows?
Matt Kemp, who signed, who was he with last year?
He was with the Marlins.
Reds.
Yeah, so he got
the Reds.
He was with the Reds for like 20 games.
Mm-hmm. And they cut him, basically released him. And the Marlins picked him up, and they didn't do anything with him. They kind of kept him on a minor league deal.
Yeah, so they had him on a minor league deal for this season. Didn't make the player pool, released him, and then the Rockies picked him up. Who apparently they wanted him back at the winter meeting. So
there you go.
Anyway.
Skyler is still not happy with that situation. Still, I guess, bad memories of Matt Kemp at Coors Field or something.
Oh,
or the fact that he's way past his prime.
That's the biggest thing. Between the two former Dodgers outfielders, people thought the Rockies would go after. Puig seemed like the obvious choice. But nope, went and got Matt Kemp. So if he can hit bombs at Coors, more power to him, but we'll see.
Yeah, he is filling a hole for Ian Desmond, which, the way I see it, Ian Desmond, he was so confused as to where he was going to play, whether he came up through the Expos and the Nationals as a shortstop. He was our everyday shortstop, very serviceable there, 2020 player. Goes over to the Texans. The Rangers. Texas Rangers. Oh, I don't know what the heck that was. So he goes to the Rangers, and there didn't really get much playing time. They had him short a little bit, but they have Elvis Andrus there first. They tried him there, but they had other players who were better, so they kind of put him to the side. The Rockies pick him up on a huge deal, really, for what he produced. And they had him playing first. They had him playing outfield, center field, whatever. And so you're kind of learning these new positions. So you're kind of having more traditional. You could have Ronald Tilapia.
Tapia's not doing nothing.
He's played every day. So, I mean, you could have a guy like him and playing outfield, and now you have the open spot for a DH. So you get your defensive outfielder. You get a DH in Matt Kemp because he cannot play outfield. And then, or you could put someone else down there. But what is really the issue is you'll put someone who is that position out there and not as big of a defensive liability as maybe a guy like Ian Desmond could be.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's what a ton of these teams will kind of, as they're rotating through their rosters, they'll try and figure out as best they can, kind of play with those matchups and I guess the different roster shuffling, figuring out the DH and getting more guys in there. It'll be interesting to see on that. But I guess we can jump right into that. You mentioned Ian Desmond opting out, and a lot of these other players, it's mostly for health concerns and whatnot, whereas Ian Desmond's kind of twofold in a way, where one, it is the health things, that's the biggest thing, but then also just the different, I think the status of baseball and addressing, the Black Lives Matter movement and current issues in society at the moment, him going out and addressing that. And Uh, if you, if anybody hasn't had the chance to read his statement that he put on Instagram, like you should go and read it because it's a very powerful statement, and kind of seeing the things that he's talking about because it wasn't specifically about just the Black Lives Matter, but really about the culture in baseball itself and the accessibility of baseball.
Yeah. And a lot of these, I mean, you see this offseason more than ever with the Black Lives Matters movement going on right now. All of the African American players, like Andrew McCutchen, who has been leading this for a long time, you have him and all the guys trying to bring baseball into a lot of those African American like towns or cities where it's football is the sport or basketball may be the sport. So they're trying to build the game up with the young generation. And this is something that Ian Desmond has been vocal about too, and trying to build up the little league that he was a part of.
Yeah, and like that little league where in today's game it's all about the travel showcases, the travel teams spending hundreds and hundreds of dollars on these kids to go play at these premier events.
And that's just
And
for one tournament. I mean, travel baseball, and so many of the players right now have came out and said how dumb it is. If you don't know about travel baseball and what's going on, it's basically this. You pay $300 for your kid to go to a weekend tournament in a different state. So just to get in, $300. You need to get to that state, so that's flying, busing, driving yourself. Could be another couple hundred if it's across the country at a premier one in California, Arizona, or Florida. So you do that as well. They play 3 games, usually on like a Saturday or Sunday, and the next day they'll play another doubleheader so they can get as many games in as possible. And then with baseball equipment being as expensive, youth bats are like a couple $100 just for the ones they'll grow out of the next year.
Serviceable, yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. And this is what Andrew McCutchen is saying, and a lot of these other players are coming out of, is baseball is too expensive for America to play anymore. When basketball, you need 10 guys total if you want to play a real game, or you could just shoot around, play 3-on-3, 2-on-2, whatever it may be, with just a basketball and a hoop. It's so much cheaper, and baseball has really become like a business to the point where you get younger and younger guys getting scouted to where it's, hey, did you see this 14-year-old kid, Bryce Harper, for 16-year-old hitting 500-foot bombs, getting drafted, told he was going to be the number 1 pick when he was like 16 years old. And so we even saw this, I guess, over the weekend of, I don't know if this was real or a joke, but it was a 10-under tournament.
I think it's real. It seems pretty legit.
It's like legit in the way that it's done, but if it's comedy, it's good. If it's real, I'm just so concerned. It was a scouting report of this tournament in a 10-under league. So these kids are 9, 10 years old, and these guys are judging them on arm action, barrel to ball, power. I don't remember what some of the other ones they said were.
Carries well through glute.
His glutes. So it's ridiculous with travel baseball. I mean, growing up for myself, you have to pay to get on those teams as well, and even just try out.
Yeah.
And then those guys, a lot of these players, this is what we're seeing. A lot of the guys now, there's a reason why they're kids of former players, because they're the only ones who can afford it.
Yeah. I remember the summer after my junior year of high school, I remember the coach from one of our division rivals, he contacted me and another kid on the team about, hey, I have this travel team. We're stationed in New Mexico that we're doing. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. How am I
supposed to afford that?
Yeah, how am I supposed to afford that? How am I supposed to travel to that?
Small town kid in Colorado.
Yeah.
Having to go it was worse. I played in Alaska, and so just to get to any tournament outside of Alaska, which is all of them, because there's like 1 or 2 a summer inside the state, you have to pay to get to Washington, which is a 3-hour flight.
Yeah.
So we held a couple in-state, but even to get into some of the other towns, you have to drive or fly.
Yeah. So it is frustrating because that's the thing is what Ian Desmond was saying of kind of this old boys, this old white rich club of what baseball is becoming. It's not accessible. It's just being diluted with these travel teams and whatnot instead of just teaching the game to kids.
Yeah, and I mean, we look at how baseball originally was. It's a lot of like what happens in the foreign leagues or like the foreign countries, so like Venezuela, Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, where it's, hey, that kid's really good. Let's keep watching him. Hey, there's a tournament going on. Hey, just come on in. You don't really have to pay for it for a lot of those. And they do have academies where they want the teams really is they'll just pick the player and they'll have them in their academy and train them in the hopes that they'll sign them later.
Yeah. No, I was just looking here on Twitter of the Premier Pipeline and some of the things that they've been posting. Like one was this kid of inside edge 12 under threw 6 scoreless innings with 15 strikeouts at our Battle for Bats tournament.
Yeah, half those kids weigh like 100 pounds.
Yeah. And like, I think that's the frustrating thing. And like, that's probably a problem that permeates in Little League, the Little League World Series. Those teams, sometimes a lot of those are coming from these travel teams that are compiling the best team possible out of all these kids. And so, for me, as someone who just loves baseball and not being a wealthy child growing up, I didn't play a game of baseball till I was in 7th grade. That was the first time I played a game of baseball. Like other than that, it's been playing out at my house on our dirt field.
What I'm thinking about like all this thing too is because I mean we both came from like smaller towns or whatever, so not the best crop of baseball. A lot of these kids who are in these 10 under, the Battle Bats, I think that's something like Bryce Harper went to, Las Vegas, California, Florida, Texas, these like big baseball states. What would like the scouts say about my 10 under teams?
Yeah.
Or like the 6th grade teams if they came, they're like, well, he picked a lot of flowers in left field over there. Coach put this kid in right field because it's everyone has to play, and they didn't know what else to do with him.
This kid has 7 boogers picked and
good arm side run, about 40 miles per hour.
It would practically be what's his name, Clark's baseball card stats from the Benchwarmers.
15 in single or 15 infield hits.
But I think that's the big problem, and I love what Ian Desmond, what he was saying, and that's what he wants to go focus on is do more of this community work because Ian Desmond he does a ton of like good charity work. He's a good guy. Yeah. He's always
Wasn't he the Hank Aaron Award for?
Yeah, he's usually the Roberto Clemente.
That's what it is.
Award for the Rockies. He's usually the
nominee.
The nominee, yeah. So hopefully that's something that baseball itself, because I think that's a problem that goes back to Major League Baseball itself. Like you were saying, it's just a business now. These owners and people don't care about accessibility. They just want the cream of the crop, and unfortunately, the cream of the crop comes from people with financial opportunities to go do those.
Mm-hmm. Back in our day, as old men yell at young generation, I guess, is what we're doing.
24, 25-year-olds.
These 24 and 25-year-olds ripping on new age baseball. Back in our day, we had those VHS tapes that had like coaching fundamentals and whatever. It was like the one guy who did like the camp from like the 80s that taught you how to like throw and hit from a VHS tape. And now it's like, here's my personalized hitting coach. We have academies. Like there was one in Utah and Orem that they like have kids in there just as young as like 8 learning on how to hit with TrackMan, with everything else, all this new stuff that the major league players are using. Mm-hmm. And I had like a VHS tape from like an old guy teaching me how to slide.
Yeah, I had out in the backyard my brother who's playing. Yeah, I had my brother who's playing high school, college baseball, teaching me homegrown. Like here, have this old shovel handle. Go out into the field and just toss rocks up to yourself and hit them with the shovel handle. I went and did that.
What is it? It's the Bartolo Colon workout program. Let me see if I can pull it out.
Up on your donkey?
It included like throwing rocks at coconuts, And let me see. Okay, Bartolo Colon. I mean, you see this mammoth of a man who's big, sexy, of course, but it showed like what he did growing up because he's from Dominican Republic, I believe, and he would just like throw rocks at coconuts. It was like chase chickens or something like that.
The Rocky routine.
Yeah, and so it's funny to see exactly what it has come to.
Yeah, and so I hope baseball itself kind of listens to these players more, and like realize they need to open up their marketing or outreach as because Major League Baseball, they're the forefront of baseball in general, and so they need to do more to make it more accessible to just these random towns and these small towns. Because where I'm at now, I'm in Pueblo, Colorado, and yeah, they have like youth sports here, and if anything, you're fundraising or it doesn't cost too much to join a team and then kind of pay together to be in the league because the sports complex that runs it has to make some money. But
yeah, I found it. I found the Bartolo Colon childhood workout baseball program. It included throwing rocks at coconuts and mangoes to build arm strength, pulped hundreds of crates of coffee beans a day, and of course, my favorite right here, used to ride his donkey Poncho to play baseball. Kids, if you want to hit major league home runs like Big Sexy himself, get yourself a donkey named Poncho.
Yeah. I wonder whatever happened to Poncho.
He's probably dead, but I mean,
did he live peacefully? Did he?
I feel bad for Poncho. You see how big the Bartolo Colon is now? I bet he was a big child.
He's a big boy. Oh, he's a big boy. Speaking of big boys, as we kind of transition here from us ripping on kids these days, probably the epitome of health in Major League Baseball right now, Pablo Sandoval. It was kind of over the weekend. A reporter for the Athletic, took a picture of Pablo Sandoval taking grounders at Giants summer camp over the weekend
with the Giants, just like a couple of days ago, I think. Didn't he re-sign?
I can't remember.
He restructured his contract recently, and it was his first day back at camp when this guy took the picture. And Pablo Sandoval, for those who
I'll share my screen here real quick so you can see it.
See if we can pull that up. Pablo Sandoval, the panda, is looking more and more like he weighs the same as a panda.
Yeah. I saw one that was like he looks like he ate Evan Longoria.
It looks like he was banking on there not being a season.
Yeah. And this comment here, this guy's saying at least the Tommy John surgery was successful as it appears he can bend his elbow to reach his mouth. And yeah, it's mean, and it kind of, I don't mean to like fat shame him or anything, because I am by no means a skinny individual anymore.
You are closer to the Pablo Sandoval than you are to the Bryce Harper, Michael Lorenzens of the world.
Yeah, which I'm okay with.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing, because this has kind of been an issue for Pablo Sandoval that people keep bringing up, is his weight and whatnot. So I'll stop sharing my screen here. Because it was the same thing. His first tenure with the Giants, a little bit with the...
he had the game with the Red Sox where he broke his belt.
Yeah.
His belly just like broke a leather belt.
Boom. And so that's kind of a problem for him because, you know, he needs to be in some sort of shape. You don't have to be, you know, Babe Ruth was living off of whiskey and cigars and hitting home runs. But still, it's that thing. If you still need to kind of be in some sort of shape and have that endurance.
Yeah, I mean, you still have to have something. He will. Who knows what the Giants will do with him? If they'll keep him around. He was serviceable last year. He was a better pitcher than he was a hitter. I think he had a couple strikeouts or whatever it may have been when he came in as a position player.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the funniest thing was this reporter who did that picture of him. He was like, the caption was, Pablo Sandoval is back in camp and his throws to first looked like they were crisp or something. Like he had some
they
zip on his
carried well.
throws. Yeah, they carried well. And then everyone came out and was shaming him for his weight. And this guy had to make a statement being like, no, I didn't do this for like weight, which 100% I believe he didn't. I believe he just like saw Pablo Sandoval, because it's not a great picture. Took like a random picture and was like, really just cared about the throws.
Yeah.
He's like, people in my mentions really want to know what Pablo Sandoval's throws are like.
Yeah, it's a very badly timed picture and bad snapshot.
It's just such a bad angle. Him like leaning back. It's just like he may not be that big. It was just unflattering of how bad the picture was and the angle that went with it.
Yeah, but like, it looks like he's carrying like several bowling balls under his shirt.
Oh,
and like
the like Family Guy episode. Hey, your son's stealing hams.
But I think something like you shared on Twitter where it was the picture of Gabe Kapler, who that dude is ripped.
Who is his manager.
Yeah, and then there's
Pablo Sandoval. One of these guys is a manager, and the other is an athlete at the highest level of their sport.
Yeah.
And if you've seen Gabe Kapler recently, I encourage you to go look him up and just do Gabe Kapler body and then compare it to any player in the league. He has them beat.
Yeah.
I don't care who they are.
But I think as Pablo Sandoval, he does have a responsibility. He needs to show up to camp at a reasonable, in shape, more or less.
Which we still don't know what. You have these big guys like Williams S2E2 for the Twins. They call him the La Tortuga, the turtle. Yeah. He's their catcher, third baseman, whatever. Dude doesn't strike out, and he has wheels. He's got those big guy wheels for some reason. And so it's all up to Pablo Sandoval. What's he going to do this year? Like Babe Ruth put up 715 home runs for being overweight cigar, eating hot dogs in the middle of innings.
Yeah. So who knows? But yeah, the shirt is probably a little too tight on him. He could have gone.
No, guys, they just gave me the wrong size shirt.
Yeah,
that was always my excuse.
But like, yeah, the same thing with Pablo Sandoval. He always had like these sneaky wheels at times. And hey, if he can get the power behind it and show that it's not a problem, or at least get into more working shape, then more power to him, and let him. You do you, Big Panda.
Swing from the belly.
Yeah, that's where the power comes from. So, who knows? But good for him.
This whole Pablo Sandoval thing made me remember that Gabe Kapler is their manager. And Joe Torre is the manager of the Phillies. And so that was a fun little dive. Joe Girardi. Joe Torre.
Yeah, Joe Torre's not
one of the New York Joes.
Yeah.
So... yeah, he's the manager of the Phillies, and it almost felt like the offseason didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I was thinking like, oh, the Phillies, they can't be that great. Oh, they got a new manager. They got Didi Gregorius at short. They've got all their guys healthy again, their starters, Jake Arrieta, Aaron Nola. They got Zach Wheeler. I was like, oh, wait a second. This is kind of scary. Yeah, and then I thought of like all the other teams. It's kind of fun to reminisce about all the teams and all the trades. Anthony Rendon, rest in peace. He's left our team and is on the Angels now. So
we have a Shohei Ohtani who's ready to pitch again and
ready to bat, ready to hit.
So,
and I also found out that my fantasy baseball did their auto draft for me, so that was fun. That's a fun little surprise I got when someone dropped David Price randomly the other day. I was like, what? When was our draft? It was like 2 months ago.
Oh, yeah. We're involved in a ESPN Fantasy Baseball one that's supposed to start in 12 days is when our draft is.
Oh, that's another thing I guess I just realized.
There you go. I just let those auto draft anyway. Yeah. This season's a lost cause.
Oh, this season makes no sense. So if you are playing fantasy baseball out there, don't worry.
Next year. Just auto draft and just play it by ear.
Exactly.
Well, moving on here. Perfect segues. We've got some perfect segues this time around, Quinn.
Our tangents and segues, man.
It's so smooth when there's just the two of us.
I know
Uh,
there's not a Nathan to produce us back on track.
yeah. Let's see here. So we're talking about crazy schedule for lost season or whatever, but just a couple hours ago at the time of this recording, this is coming out on Tuesday. So here on Monday, the MLB released the schedules for this season, the new
Yeah,
revised schedules.
the good 60-day sprint.
Yes, for like I was counting it for the Rockies, like 6 off days within the 11 weeks. 11 weeks of baseball.
Yeah,
So that'll be kind of crazy. Opening night, July 23rd, we'll have the Yankees and Nationals.
that's the opening day game. It's slated to be Garrett Cole versus Max Scherzer, which we've known this forever, which is like a strange thing. It must have
Yeah,
gotten
like a
like
couple,
leaked.
like last week or so. That's like it's probably going to be these two, which
Yeah,
makes sense.
and it's the like opening day game. Max Scherzer, Garrett Cole. Is it at Nationals Park?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
it's in Nationals Park, and then we got the Giants at Dodgers in at Dodger Stadium. So
which
those are the two games going on July 23rd, and then everybody else starts up on the 24th, where there's a pretty good spread. So the way, if you haven't followed this at all, and if you are watching this, and I hope you are watching this, we love
this
you.
to see our beautiful faces.
Or there's the audio version if anybody ever wants to listen to that. But everybody else starting up, and the way they're doing it this season is the National League East and the American League East will only play each other. And then the same with the Central and same with the West. So that's kind of how it's going to work. And you just travel up and down. You'll have 40 games against your division opponents in your regular division. And then the rest of them, the other 20, will be against interleague rivals. So that'll be interesting.
The Seattle Mariners, I believe, still have the biggest or longest travel time or distance.
It's like the Astros. The Astros have the longest.
Yeah, it's
It's
usually
it's
one of
most of
those
the
AL West.
it's most of the West has the longest travel this season because you got I think Colorado and the Texas teams, and then you got Arizona, and then there's up in Seattle. So those are kind of the
And then there's the New York teams, which basically could take like a 1 hour train ride to every place.
yeah they're just gonna shove the entire team on the subway and
Head up.
But I think that it's kind of interesting. Changes this new dynamic for the 60 game season. Kind of sparks some new rivalries for this season because it's going to be interesting to see if these different divisions and the competition in each of them. Because you look at the East division, and there's not a whole lot of competition in theory
In
for
the
some of these
American
teams.
League.
Yeah,
You have like the National League East, which the
it's
top
pretty competitive.
top four teams really, Phillies, Nationals, Braves, and Mets. You look at the prediction for the who's going to win it, it's like a flip-flop. Each of those
Mm-hmm.
teams have really good starters. I think each one of those teams is like 3 starters deep. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have that. Everyone's healthy, good bats, veteran presence, whatever, yada yada. American League East, it's Yankees and steep drop off. Not steep. I guess you have the Braves, who knows what they're gonna do. They're kind of a long team. They're not meant for like a sprint as much. But you have the Rays, the Red Sox are kind of in a rebuilding, confusing state right now, and it's less of competition for them.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people in the West are already giving it to the Dodgers, who
I
probably
think
have
we've
the
been doing
easier
that for
schedule.
like 6 years now.
Yeah, 6 or 7 years. So it'll be nice to see if one of these American League teams, like the A's or even the Angels, could knock them off for the year. But it's kind of fun to see the different, I guess the scheduling, how it's working out. Some guys seem to have easier schedules than others.
Yeah.
So
Anyone playing the Royals, anyone playing the Orioles. You got anyone playing the Rockies.
Oh, we have Matt Kemp. He's going to hit home runs.
Kemp. And Ronald Tilapia.
It's Raimel Tapia. We got Beer League Murphy.
Daniel Hits Murphy.
I wish. But no, it's a pretty interesting schedule. Interesting to see. The weird home-away splits were kind of weird, where some splits were going to be 7-3, so 7 home, 3 on the road. Or like 6 at home, 4 on the road. So there was one team in the Central where 7 of their 10 games against the Cubs were at Wrigley Field.
What?
Yeah, so I think it's for the Brewers or the Reds, something like that. So there's going to be some weird splits and some like 2-game series. I think I count for the Rockies only 6 off days.
Yeah, I think they have to play 60 games in 66 days, and that's
63 days or so. Yeah,
it's like a ridiculous amount of go. No All-Star break this year. It's like maybe like a 2-day break. I don't even know how they have that set up. The weird August, halfway through the season, your 30-day trade deadline, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of players are going to have to, just like play straight. You don't get too much off days, and you're going to have to like go as hard as you can, because if you lose one game, that's a huge thing. You don't have many opportunities to make up games.
Yeah, and I saw something I agreed with that they were talking about on MLB Network is some of the pitchers, a lot of these people, like near the end of the season, there's fatigue. Guys are maybe not have as much in the tank as they did at the beginning of the season. They're worn down. Near the end of the season, this time around, 60 games, a lot of them are still going to be in mid-season form, pretty fresh.
Yeah. If someone gets 100 innings, 100-plus innings, that's just crazy.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting.
I could see that as maybe some more teams will be pushing their players a little harder and pushing them to go more innings. But it's all up to these guys, what they're going to do, how they feel like their bodies are going to work. Do you do that and then wait for the playoffs and then go harder there? I mean, we've never seen something like this before.
Yeah. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think it'll be fun. Just kind of this marathon sprint to the end of the season. I do like the opportunities that a lot of teams have for the 60 games, the DH for the National League. That'll be interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Make way for Matt Kemp.
I just pulled it up right now, or not right now, but I pulled up to see which teams it would have like the biggest benefit to a DH and compare it. So right now in the American League, the Orioles would be the worst team. Like the DH, they have the worst DH. They really have no one on their team. In the National League, this is NBC Sports Washington, so maybe a little biased, but who knows? It has the Arizona Diamondbacks as having like the DH, because right now it's either Jake Lamb or Christian Walker. And so you have like Arizona Diamondbacks. Right above them, you have San Diego Padres, because it'd be Will Smith. And then up towards the top, you have, of course, teams like the Dodgers, the Cubs, the Nationals, who have good bats that are just put on the bench. So it's cool. Cincinnati Reds made the top 5 as number 5. For Chicago, 3 was the Milwaukee Brewers, because Ryan Braun finally gets to take his terrible glove out of the outfield.
Yeah.
2 is the Washington Nationals. Howie Kendrick gets to take his terrible glove out of the infield. And number 1, everyone knows, the Dodgers. Because they have too many players.
Yeah, there's too many.
We just have too many good guys. Jock Peterson and his terrible defense.
Who almost could have been with the Angels.
Almost. A little weird time, yeah.
Oh, that would have sent Andy Pajes over to the Angels.
Yeah.
Thank goodness that didn't work out.
Yeah, weird things. It was like a weird situation, like a failed physical or something that stopped Jock Peterson going from one team to another.
Yeah, it was, and the Mookie Betts trade was taking way too long because of the
Yeah,
snag, and
it was
so
because
then
they wanted more players, and
the physical for one of the Twins players that was
yep.
getting traded,
Mm-hmm.
and so it just kind of put everything on ice. And so Jock Peterson and Ross Stripling stay with the Dodgers, who then Ross Stripling can now slot into the rotation with David Price opting out.
Yep.
Crazy stuff. Crazy stuff. With this jiggle like Pablo Sandoval.
Harry Carey style. That's crazy.
That's crazy. But yeah, I'm excited. Rockies start out in Texas against the Rangers. Good stuff.
The Rangers, they're a team to watch out for. They're an underrated team who have good pitching, good hitting.
I keep forgetting they have Corey Kluber now.
They have Corey Kluber to go with Mike Minor and all the rest of their guys, Lance Lynn, and their bullpen, which is good.
Like I couldn't tell you half of the Rangers team. I know Joey Gallo, Elvis Andrews.
Rougned Odor.
They got Todd Frazier, didn't they?
Is Todd Frazier on that team?
I don't know. Did he
he
sign
still on
with
the
them?
Mets?
No, he was a free agent. I think the Rangers picked him up.
Oh my goodness. It's like, it goes back to what was the offseason? How long ago was that? That was just crazy.
Yeah. All I have is MLB The Show 20 to remind me that teams exist and who's on what team.
That's the only way.
Like Nolan Arenado's still on the Rockies? What?
What? Trevor Story? Who's he?
Yeah. Jeremiah Jackson, he's in the minors. But yeah, so fun stuff. July 23rd, baseball season starts.
Baseball.
And then July 24th, Pioneer Day is starting with everybody else on opening day itself.
That's
and
true.
Hopefully we can all survive until then.
Hopefully summer camp goes good. No one sneaks into the cafeteria and gets allergy attacks to where we can't play baseball.
Yeah. Who knows?
Sandoval sneaking in there and eating all the cookies. They need to lock down the snack cabinet at the cafeteria.
Instead of summer camp, the Giants have moved Pablo Sandoval to their new summer camp, Fat Camp.
Oh.
Oh, man. But no, it should be fun. Just less than a month away.
Less than a month away.
So, fun stuff.
2 weeks? 3 weeks? 2 weeks? 2 weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
2 weeks from Thursday. Wow.
They'll be back in action.
And then mid-season form, Skyler, where he's sad because the Rockies continue to do nothing and
yep,
don't really win, but don't really lose too much either.
30-30.
There we go, 30-30. That's what they're aiming for.
Really quick, before we begin to wrap things up, I want to touch on one quick little thing. There's a lot of the discussion, the Washington Redskins looking to change their name. Cleveland Indians now entering that conversation as well of changing their name. So Quinn, really quick question. What would you rename the Cleveland Indians?
Oh, the Cleveland. So you got to think of a little bit of like what the city is like, the area.
The Cleveland Drew Carey.
The Cleveland. What is Cleveland known for? Well,
Drew Carey.
Drew Carey, America's favorite
sweetheart
game show host. Whose line is it anyway? Not that other one he's on.
The Drew Carey Show, which takes place in Cleveland. Show.
You think of Cleveland, I think of beautiful scenery, a river that catches on fire every year, just the nicest people, rusty old industrial work. What could we think? The Cleveland Rust Buckets?
The Cleveland LeBrons.
Could you imagine the Cleveland LeBron James? I bet you
Or
LeBron James couldn't name 4 players on that team.
who knows?
Yeah, this does come up with like a bunch of issues. Is like branding your team's name after something that's been around since before World War II.
Mm-hmm.
The Indians have been around forever. Chief Wahoo just finally got taken off their uniforms last year as they continued to make it a little more, I guess, I don't know, better for their image as they take Chief Wahoo, which is a terrible terrible image. The fact that it got to this long is crazy.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Washington Redskins got to this long, which both those teams are storied franchises that have been around for over 50 years. And I think it's good that they're getting their names changed. Finally. It's just like you're never going to please anybody with whatever the next name is going to be.
The Cleveland Tomays.
The Cleveland not Indians. You have so many options.
One that I would love is just call them the Cleveland Rocks.
Yeah, for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah, you could incorporate that. Some sort of music thing. That would probably be a safe bet there, is if they related it to some sort of music, rock and roll.
The Cleveland Notes.
Cleveland Rolling Stones. Cleveland Hard Rocks.
The Cleveland Rocks. Could you imagine?
That's the hashtag for when the Rockies and Cleveland team up for things on Twitter. The hashtag Cleveland Rocks.
The hashtag Cleveland Rocks.
The Cleveland Terry Franconas.
The Cleveland Tito's.
Or do you play into your major league history with that movie and call yourselves the Cleveland Wild Things?
Oh, and then you change the logo to the baseball logo from the movie.
From the movie. Perfect licensing.
Yeah.
And then you film a 4th movie with the current team.
Oh, no. But you put in actors in random positions for each game. An actor has to be in one position, and they have to rotate, so they can't play the same position every game.
Yeah, those games have to take 20 hours because of reshoots, and so constantly rescoring the game where they have to redo plays. Like, oh no, Lindor hit into a inning-ending double play. We got to redo that.
And Charlie Sheen, who has been playing shortstop, gets another error. Tom Berger.
So, it'll be interesting to see what Cleveland does, because I think it's almost inevitable that they're going to change their name, which they can figure out something that carries on the legacy.
We'll think of something.
It could be the Wood Ponies.
The Wood Ponies.
It's what we won for the Missoula Osprey, but instead they went with Paddleheads.
The Paddleheads.
Which
they could take Owls.
Yeah. They're not using it right now.
They should just like pick a random minor league team, make them mad.
The Sod Daddies.
The Sod Dads. Ugh.
They could be the Trash Pandas.
No. There's nothing better than Rocket City Trash Panda. You can't do Cleveland Trash Pandas. I still think the Burning Lake or the Burning Rivers.
But who knows? It'll be interesting to see what they come up with too.
It'll probably be next year that they officially announce. As they'll probably wait for the off season to get a little bit more with the marketing team and doing some market research into what would be best.
The Cleveland Blob Fellers.
There you go.
The Cleveland Fellers.
The Cleveland Fellers.
They are, instead of regular ball caps, they could have like top hats.
They just have like those straw hats.
Yeah.
Hey feller, how you doing?
Pitcher's on the mound. He's got a big piece of straw hanging out of his mouth. So, Cleveland Indians, hit Quinn and I up. We got a lot of ideas.
We're full of great ideas.
Full of them.
We never stop.
we never stop, and they wish we would.
They tell us to.
Well, Quinn, that's all the time we've got. Closing in on an hour or so here. And if anybody stick with us for that long, good on them. But that'll do it here on the Sideline Crowd. Wanted to plug a few things here at the end, so then I know that you've watched. Stay tuned. We've got a interview with Kyle Kercheval coming up. That'll be released on the YouTube page. Probably the same time this episode goes up. You can find us the audio version on Spotify, Google Music, a couple of others. Basically wherever you can get podcast. But Spotify is probably the best one to find. You can listen to my golden voice do an ad. About Anchor.
Ooh.
And so we've got that podcast episode every week on Tuesdays is what we try. Quick hits. I try to get those throughout the week, which are just little news recap videos. And then probably my favorite one is Moments. So there's about 3 episodes out so far. One that starred Quentin. And then there's one with my brother, and then just released one today at the time of this recording, so on Monday, with Kyle Kercheval doing
this is a Rockies one too?
And he wanted to, and then I made him do we had him pick a different one, so we went with his home opener with the Grand Junction Rockies last season in the booth. So, fun stuff. But again, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter. Be sure to like and subscribe and share with your friends if you like what you see. Wink.
You can do that. It'd be really nice. Please do it.
Please. I want to eat.
Skylar doesn't eat if you don't like and subscribe to this, so do it now.
For every subscribe, I get to eat a pretzel stick.
I actually have him locked in the basement. So like and subscribe this. Thanks for listening to the Sideline Crowd, guys.
All right. All righty, Quinn. Well, thanks for joining us.
See you later.
Farewell.